The media can be very powerful. It can literally shape the way we think, influence what we do, and even change how we interact with other people if we let it. Has the media been correct in portrayals of certain demographics? What can be done to construct more positive images? We've got you covered. This is what I wish you knew about stereotypes in the media. What's up, everybody? My name is Yasmin Arrington. Welcome to I Wish You Knew. Have you ever watched a show and thought to yourself, nope, that's not true? Or read a headline that criticized an entire demographic? The media tends to favor larger-than-life portrayals and can sometimes send negative messages to consumers. Why is that? And is there some truth to these portrayals? Here to tell you what they wish you knew are...
What's up? I'm Zeppelin.
Hi, I'm Janet.
Also joining us today are participants in the DC Department of Health's Healing Futures Fellowship Program. The fellowship is in conjunction with the Department of Health's participation in the Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program. Darius Cook and Jacqueline Strange are both peer mentors in the program. Welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First, tell us a little about the fellowship and what you do there.
Well, for the fellowship, it is more like an exposure program. And if the students have already been exposed, then more like a refresher, and it's guided toward high school students. So each week we have a specific theme. So the first week was more about getting to know yourself and then your identity. We took the Myers-Briggs test so that we know what our personalities and our preferences are. And then for the second week was about health equity. So we had a speaker who came in to tell us about the development of H Street, and we learned about the community and how the community affected the residents who were living there and how their health may have improved or not improved. And then the third week is about social media, stereotypes, and identity.
Excellent, Jacqueline. It sounds like a very awesome program. Most of us have been guilty from time to time of stereotyping a particular group, race, or religion. What have you all noticed about certain groups and how they're portrayed in the media?
I've definitely noticed that for African Americans, especially when it comes to men, you know, sometimes we get a stereotype as being very volatile, you know, being hostile, you know, not necessarily being lazy as well. You know, that's another one. Criminal is another one that I've noticed. And then like on like some of the funner or more fun side, like we like chicken, we like watermelon,
chicken
like,
and watermelon.
You know what I'm saying? Like that sort of like type of thing as well. Yes. I've noticed, but you know, I've noticed both sides, and you know, yeah. I don't know, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, for myself, it's kind of like, well, we don't see enough Asian Americans on TV anyway, but when we do, it's such antiquated stereotypes, like, you know, nerdy Asian guys or women who are exotic or desirable in very inappropriate ways. And so, you know, I believe there was only like 4 to 6% Asian or Asian American representation on TV, like in the last year. So it's like, it's either we don't get represented or we do, it's like kind of messed up.
Yeah, thank you. So Darius, what about you and Jacqueline, and also why do you think that it's important to have this topic covered in your program about identity stereotypes?
It's typically all about health equity and how we interact.
And what is health equity? What is that?
It's getting to all full health, to not just health care, but health like mental, physical.
It's like holistic health.
Yeah, basically. So when you think about the media and stereotypes, we are affected individually. The media is always going to be around us, especially in the generation that we're in now. So I know a lot of people who learn most of their information via Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, which is like crazy. You know, it's right on your phone. You know, so with knowing all the information, we're affected by it, especially when it comes to different opinions, fake news. That really affects us. Yeah, that really affects us mentally.
Alternative facts.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some examples? So you talk, about social media being, maybe more prevalent when it comes to where we're getting information from, especially millennials. So what are some examples of this? Like stereotypes playing out in the media, identity in social media. What are we seeing?
I think it's more headlines. When a black guy commits a crime or a mass shooting happens, they always use this mugshot, or they always use this language of, criminal or like bad guy, and then when it comes to like a mass shooting with a Caucasian man, he's mental, has to do with psychological problems.
Absolutely.
And if a Muslim or anybody, along the lines of that, when it happens, he's a terrorist and things like that. So I think it's more so when it comes down to race, you feel like your race isn't great, like you feel down on yourself. So I think that comes into the mental part.
Wow, Darius.
Yeah.
This is great, but we have to take a quick break. But first, it's trivia time. Which major network broadcasted the first daily TV newscast? The answer when we return. Welcome back to I Wish You Knew. Before we get back to the conversation, we want to give a shout out to our studio audience, the DC Department of Health's Marion Barry Summer Youth Employment Program. So today, we're talking about stereotypes in the media. What kind of messages do you think these stereotypes send to the world?
I think that it really shapes the way that you kind of view, the other races and the other cultures that you interact with, right? So if you think about, for instance, if you look on TV or on television shows on the media and you see that a certain race is, always committing crimes, or that's really kind of the time that you see them, and then they may be in your neighborhood or they may be in your surroundings, then naturally, that's what you're gonna, flash back to, especially if you've never really interacted with them in real life. So it really kind of, it shapes the way that you view them in the real world, which is, kind of irresponsible on the part of media, because they don't understand that, you see them in this light right here, but then, yet that's how you also kind of view them in the in the real world, and it goes both sides as well. So it's like with sometimes like with Asian Americans, we view them as being like really intelligent and smart and that sort of thing, and being studious because that's the way that we always see them. So it works on both sides of the equation, the spectrum.
And I feel like even with superheroes, when we have these pictures that are of folks who are, saving people and saving the world, a lot of times they're Caucasians or white folks.
Shout out to the Black Panther that's coming out though.
Right. There's finally we have a black superhero.
There was a Netflix series, Iron Fist, which is based off an Asian American character. They used a Caucasian actor, right? It's surprising that how even in very progressive spaces, they forget about the different intersectionalities. So there's shows like Girls that represent super, pro-feminist, like white women, but where's the representation for women from communities of color, right? Like their narratives are not the same as my narrative. And so why do they keep perpetuating that, like, oh, this is what a feminist looks like, this is what a woman looks like, and they're trying to be all progressive and inclusive, but they're really actually at the end of the day, they're not. Because even with the Women's March that happened back in January, I mean, it was all great, but being someone who was actually in the crowd, I didn't feel like I was with the other women. Like I felt still different and apart in that space. So just kind of, I think we have a long way to go. I think that's kind of where I'm at.
What about you all, Jacqueline, Darius? What do you think?
I think it's I fly a lot. It's like my first method of transportation. I don't like buses or trains. So I think it's funny how, well, crazy how, like, you know, I have a couple homeboys who's scared to get on a plane with the person, you know, who's a Muslim, or it seems as though it's from like you know, an Arab country. I'm like, yo, what are you scared for? Like,
Absolutely.
you know, they got checked just like us, and they're like, well, they probably got something this way or something this way. I'm like, yo, yeah, and that's based off the 9/11 fear, and it's just the whole country. I know a lot of people who feel that way. It's like scared to get on a plane with a Muslim, and yeah, I think it's shown in movies.
Absolutely.
It's shown definitely in our society where the news like covers that. That's like one of the biggest things to cover in the news, and it's showed in a lot of movies.
Right.
And I think that's the crazy.
Yeah,
Day-to-day stereotypes I always see.
Every time I see a bombing or a shooting pop up, like breaking news, I'm just like, oh my God, please don't let it be a brown person, don't let it be Muslim related. Like, there's just another reason to like fear-monger people, and it's just like such a alarming feeling that I have every time now since the last, when did 9/11 happen? Like eons ago, right? And it's just like, even now today, it's even more heightened than I could probably say.
Yeah.
Jacqueline, I liked what you said about women and how you see that some maybe women of power are portrayed. Would you share that again with us?
What I said was that within media, women aren't portrayed as being smart, intelligent, or looked into as their educational background. More so, they're objectified. People tend to point out what they're wearing or criticize them on their relationship towards their spouse rather than the policies that they might want to promote. And I think that's very important. And I also feel that with stereotypes, they categorize everybody in the same group. So somebody might have one single opinion for one person based upon a bunch of people, which is not true. And you mentioned the word intersectionality, and I feel that that's important because it helps individualize people. So for me, I'm Black, I grew up in an urban setting. That might be different from somebody who grew up in a suburban setting, maybe a different race, different amount of siblings they grew up with. That all makes us individual and unique. But with stereotypes, we're all seen as the same people by an outside perspective.
I wanna play devil's advocate really quickly, even though I do agree, right? I do want to play devil's advocate in the sense of that I feel like nowadays a lot of the negative stereotypes, especially that come from urban cultures, a lot of the times behind them, they are producers who also are a part of, you know, urban culture. So if we take Love and Hip Hop, right, for instance, you know, it's Mona Scott Young, right, who's the producer of that. It's an African American, you know, woman who is, you know, essentially kind of help perpetuate this sort of stereotypes, you know, that we're talking about, being like loud, aggressive, you know, don't necessarily, you know, how to conduct themselves appropriately in public, whatever that may be. So like, how do you all feel about that sort of thing? I mean, you know, even BET back in the day got a lot of flack, you know, for some of the programming that they were, you know, showing of our community. So, you know, how do you all?
So there's a saying that the only color that, you know, media and entertainment cares about is green, because all they really care about is
entertainment factor.
Yeah, right? Because they really just care about money and what brings in the ratings and what brings in the audience. And I'm not promoting and advocating or defending them in any means, but at some point there has to be an investment that makes sense to them. And, you know, I think the best thing I ever heard is the folks who did Master of None on Netflix is like, since they didn't create a space for us, we made it for ourselves.
Right. Where's responsibility coming at though?
To who though? On both ends?
Yeah, to a certain, well, especially, I mean, from your community to, essentially to your community, right? Because then like, it's like, how do you actually push your identity forward, or the way that the media, you know, because they're already going to do it regardless. You already know when you tune into network TV, they're going to show you one way. So then now, are you just going to perpetuate it with the media that you put out as well? Like, where does that whole responsibility come in?
Absolutely not, because I mean, recently, like Hawaii Five-0, just 2 Korean American actors left the show because they were being paid less than their white, you know, co-actors. And you know, it wasn't, for them, it wasn't about the money, but it was about respect, you know. And it's like kind of saying like, we've been on the show, on a good rating show for 7 years now, and you're lowballing us? Like, that's just rude, right? So I think I think actors are, who have that leverage or making that representation known.
Yeah. No,
How important is appropriate representation, and can it be achieved?
I think it's super important. Like for me, I watch a lot of TV, and I've always watched a lot of TV, and I think I actually learned a lot more about the American culture by watching media and entertainment, because like I didn't come from necessarily an American household, and so you learn a lot about how people perceive you, how perceive different communities, and especially the news, like how we just talked about how they frame different stories, right?
Absolutely.
That's like the massive communication that everyone sees. So that's really gonna be a reflection of how people perceive us. I went to a college where I was like probably the first Asian American they have seen in their entire life in person.
Wow.
Sometimes some of these kids have never seen Latinx community members or Black community members, and I was helping a freshman who was moving in, and I was like, they're like, you're the first Asian I've ever met. I'm like, congratulations. Like, what do you want me to say to you?
More conversation when we return. Be sure to tell us what you think by using the hashtag IWYK for I Wish You Knew. Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. Let's talk about how or what we can do to identify and see through media generalizations. So Jacqueline, what do you think?
I think family is a big, important portion of kind of going against some of the negative vibes that are coming from the media. I know for me personally, my mother and my grandmother was always there to encourage me that I was always a strong, beautiful Black woman. And having the community and your family members there to support you for who you truly are is important, and they're always there to remind you of that. So I think they're an important aspect to helping keep people creative and staying true to themselves, as opposed to what the media portrays them as.
Yeah, I totally agree. Family, just community, family aspect. I go to a predominantly white institution, and I haven't experienced racism or anything like that, but I experienced more so curiosity. Like, one of my suite mates thought that all Black people knew how to rap, and he thought that we were all like, he was like, yo, you don't play football for the team or basketball,
Wow.
But it was more so, I didn't take it as disrespect. I take it as he never been in a situation where he knew that many Black people. He was like, yeah, I had one Black friend, but he was rich,
Right.
So the way he acted was not the way me and my actual roommate acted. So it was more so just always curiosity questions in my FYE first year experience class, where we talked about fight the power and how media and how a lot of things around us that people we're affected by. And I'm happy that my school has BSA, which is the Black Student Alliance, where I get that community, I get that feel that we're here, we're like banging through the door. So I think that we hosted a lot of events this school year, and like people at schools like, yeah, I really needed that because I didn't know anything about the movie Get Out, or I didn't get the theme of Get Out. I thought it was just a comedy thriller when it had like a deep message.
Absolutely.
Or Hidden Figures, for example, we played that at my school. It's like, I didn't know that African Americans helped send out the shuttle, because I thought it was all a bunch of white old guys. So I think that having that aspect around you, that community family vibe, is what can like send this stereotype breaker, personal aspect. But like when you think about like this umbrella of everybody being affected through Twitter, Instagram, and through the news outlets, I think that community aspect will help people like, that has nothing to do with me. I'm not even going to have my interest in reading it, because, more views they get, the more headlines they're going to make, the more, things like that.
I think it's also important, though, that we control the media that we put out. I mean, what you just spoke to about, you know, Get Out, or, you know, Hidden Figures, or even on the, you know, entertainment television side with shows like Insecure, or shows like, you know, Atlanta. It's like when we're kind of in creative control and being able to put out how we want to be visually represented, then I think that it kind of helps to, you know, to shift those. And, you know, we have platforms to do it. Like you said, we have social media, we have YouTube. It's not like there's a barrier that's stopping us from being able to create the media that if we really have an issue with it, there's nothing stopping us from being able to create the media that we want to kind of put out, especially if it's authentic, then, you know, people will resonate with it and that sort of thing. So I would,
I think Issa Rae is a perfect example of
Yeah.
that. Like with
For
her
sure.
awkward black girl,
Yeah.
and she started that. I mean, from her living room and on YouTube, and now
Exactly.
she's on a major
that
network.
grew to HBO, right?
Yeah.
She controlled the way that she wanted to be represented, and then they were like, "Oh snap, you have fans? Like, bet, all right, cool. Like, do your thing. We'll step back."
And it
So-
shows the power
Yeah.
that if we take, as you suggest, Zeppelin, if we take our own power that we have with our fingertips and our own lives, and being able to control the messages that we send and what people are seeing, then I mean we can gain. It's not necessarily about the following, but the exposure. You know, millions of followers, and then all of a sudden we continue to grow and expand our audiences, so that allows diversity in the stereotypes and the media portrayals that we're seeing. Now, granted, there may be some truths to the stereotypes, but I would never think that it's fair, or it's never holistically true to generalize an entire group or religion, or you know, and say, oh, they're all like this.
But I also think that there's barriers that we create for ourselves, and what I mean by that is, I can confidently say my Facebook newsfeed probably looks very different from yours, and probably looks very different from Joe Schmo down the street, because we basically personally, with the help of Facebook, curate what our newsfeed actually looks like.
That's true.
Right. So mine is heavily liberal, heavily Asian American, heavily entertainment based, heavily social justice based. But everyone else's feed probably looks very different. So that alone, we're creating a bubble for ourselves and not getting access to news that we should be probably getting access to. So anytime I do different panels now, I actually encourage young folks to diversify their newsfeed, to purposely seek out different platforms that you might not necessarily have a reach to, especially communities that you might not have a reach to, and follow those pages, follow those, you know, threads and things like that, because that's, you know, honestly, like, I'm not gonna sit down and watch news like for an hour. Like, that's just not gonna happen nowadays, right? So what we do virtually, like, we need to be better personally on how to curate what we see for ourselves.
It's the balance. It's like the balance, and it's the perspective that you bring into you know, your life. I don't think it should be either or, like you have to be all the way left or all the way right, but you just need to kind of have that, you know, that balance. Like if you know, if you're following the Shade Room, then you also, you know, like saying, like throw the Huffington Post or like the Root in there as well. Like give yourself both mediums so that like, it's,
I follow Donald Trump. I don't care if my friends see that I've liked his page. I just need to see what he's saying, so I know how to better prepare myself, right? And it's that kind of thing.
Panel, this was a phenomenal discussion. Thank you again, Darius and Jacqueline, our guests from the Department of Health, the Healing Futures program. We have to go, but before we do, panel, the answer to our trivia question is...
Fox 5!
No, not Fox 5. NBC, the national broadcasting company, aired the first daily TV newscast in 1940. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.